Hi guys, it's Mark Millar from Access Noize, and I'm very pleased to introduce my guest today, Mark Emmerson, frontman from the Lucid Dream. Hi Mark, how's it going?
How you doing? You all right?
Not bad at all, not bad at all.
Good.
The Lucid Dream released your fifth album, The Deep End, due out on the 2nd of April. As I said, it's absolutely tremendous album. Really, really enjoying it. There are moments on the album that's it sort of reminds me of sort of late 80s or early 90s. You know, maybe Primal Scream, sort of the Shaman, with all sorts of other things mixed in with it. Was that because it was, you know, they're the sort of bands that influence you, or was it also to do with the equipment that was being used? It was similar to what those bands used back in the day.
I must be honest. The primary influence from that kind of time was more of a Chicago acid house kind of band, which is where the equipment comes from as well, which also was a big influence on our last album, Actualisation. But this was kind of like the next logical step along. But most of it was a lot of Chicago house music, and Kraftwerk as well was a huge one. So it was kind of come from that. But it's very much rooted in late 80s Chicago, definitely, which transpired to what was going on in London and Manchester about a couple of years later. So it was a lot of it was down to all that influence, that without a doubt.
Yeah, I could definitely notice from Actualisation, you know, it's definitely moved on. You know, there's more sort of, as you said, it's sort of the acid tinge vibe to it, and it's moved on with more hip hop, drum and bass sort of flavors added to the deep end. Was this when did you begin writing this album? Was this written during lockdown, or did you start it before? Or have you been sitting on it?
No, it's been finished for a long time. I finished writing this album before Actualisation came out, so this album has been finished for over a year now, in terms of mixed, mastered, for over a year. We started recording it just after Actualisation came out, so start of 2019. And we recorded nearly all of it in the first half of 2019 and mixed most of it around then too. So it's for us, it's quite old now because it's been finished that long. So lockdown, we didn't do any of it in lockdown. We haven't actually been in the same room since our last gig in February last year. Wow. So it's not a lockdown album by any means, no. But at the same time, I've written an album in lockdown, so that will come eventually. But it was this new album's done and dusted over a year ago. We were all saying the other day when we were speaking to each other, I was like, listening back to it, it's kind of like, it's quite surprising to hear it again, because it's been away that long, because it was due to come out May or June last year, and just before we were about to announce it, obviously everywhere went in lockdown and we shelved the album. So it is quite an old album to us already, and we've not played it live either, so that's a first for any album, because all our albums have always been played live a lot and then recorded. This one's kind of totally new in that respect, which I kind of like as well, because you're not sick of it.
Well, when you were saying you were listening back to it, are you still happy with it? You know, or did you leave it for a while, so you know you didn't want to change anything?
That's the first time I've ever done that, because when I'm making an album, I'm very obsessive. I write the album, we record it, I produce it, and won't all the time just listen to mixes non-stop, obsessing over details. But this one, it was good just to go back to it, and I was kind of like, listening to it, I was like, this is brilliant. I'm kind of really, really happy. I kind of like, when I listened back to it, I was kind of thinking, I can't believe we've came to that stage of making an album like that after what we were when we started. like 14 years ago, whatever it was. You know, it's like you make an album which is you would never have dreamed of making, and I absolutely love it. I wouldn't change any of it, because I wouldn't change anything with most of our albums, to be honest, because they are what they are.
Yeah.
When you record them, that's what happens, and that's a moment in time, and that's what it's reflecting. So going back and changing things, it's never really interested me. But the only thing we've ever said is, me and Mike, bass player, have said before, we would have liked to have remixed our second album, because meaning we're never quite happy with that eventually. But no, I'm really, really happy with the new album. It's kind of like, it's been sat on for that long. It's kind of like, just want to get it out to people. It's funny, some of the ideas we've had during, like, when lockdown started. Was one day I was kind of, I think we were all just saying, should we just put it online and give it away for free? And yeah, we left it for a day. I'm like, no, we'd probably end up regretting that in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as much as I love all your albums, I think this is definitely the best one you've done. I think it's so it would be a shame just to put it out for free.
Because you kind of forget until you're making an album how much of a process it is, because it's hard work, you know, like when we're recording, it's like 12 hours straight of recording. When you're mixing, it's non-stop. It's like it's a proper experience making an album. It's really hard in the sense of it takes over your life. Even when you're in bed on a night time, your album's in your head. You get up in the morning. I mean, the first thing I do after 12 hours in the studio is I go home and listen to the mixes, which is crazy, really. But that's kind of, it takes over your life, you know. And the thing with us, so we've always been pretty good at making albums, in the sense of we've never had any issues. And I already know album number 6 is going to be quite straightforward, because I've written it. And we're always, when we go and work on things together, it's always just comes together. And it's very natural. So I already know album number 6 will be very straightforward. I mean, we don't go in the studio and sit making ideas, or, I mean, when you're in the studio, especially now, because we're like self-funded, time is money. So we go in the studio, make an album, like we're like, right, we're doing that, want the drums to sound like that. We normally get things down 1 or 2 takes, but we always have a very clear vision of what we're doing. Production is where, when you're producing an album, that's when you can kind of start getting more invested into experimenting with it. I feel anyway, when I'm helping with the producing. But it's when I listened back to the album the first time, what song was it? I think it was Sunrise, the second last song on the album. I was kind of like, I just listened to it and it's like, bloody hell. It's like, is that us?
No, it's an amazing track. I mean, your songwriting process, has it changed much from your first album, Songs of Lies and Deceit, until this album, The Deep End?
Massively, in the sense of what you're using to write, because The Deep End quite obviously was written almost entirely on the drum machine and the synthesizers, the TB-03 and SH-01A, while the first album was all in your spare room on the guitar kind of thing. But now, I mean, I've always written the albums and the songs, but now it's much more, especially with Deep End, is all electronic, and I'd play the bass parts as I was hearing them and write the bass parts. Mike goes and does his thing when we record it. For me, it was always a bass part in my head first. I mean, guitars, I don't really play much guitar at all now. Having said that, I've went and written half an album on a guitar in the last month or two, so it's weird how these things happen. So like, the songwriting process is always different. This one and Actualisation, that was the first album where I started doing demos at home on GarageBand, rough demos, and I'd send them to the other three lads, and we'd all work on it together in the rehearsal room. While in the past, it was always just turning up in the rehearsal room and like playing out the song. And that was a very lengthy process. While with this one, it was just, here's what we're doing. This is a demo. And then we go in and do it. And as I say, the magic happens. The process is very different. I mean, it's weird. I can't really remember writing much of our first album. I can't really remember it. Just kind of happens. Sometimes songwriting, you write a song subconsciously, and then the next day you kind of, oh bloody hell, I wrote a song yesterday. It's not like you're sitting there with one eye open, out like drunk or whatever. You know, it's like it's always just something that happens. It's quite a process. It's like I remember reading someone say once, you can sense when a song's coming the days before, and it's true. It just happens. And you kind of, now I know that I've got the sixth album is written, that kind of makes me think, when is this going to stop? You know, like we've just on quite a good bit of luck. It's quite funny. I'm talking about writing sixth album, and the fifth album's not even available to hear anyway.
Well, I've heard it, and it's amazing. The album opens with a 10-minute euphoric epic Coalescence. I mean, it's quite brave to put a song that length at the beginning of an album, and it's definitely a toe tapper, and it completely sets the mood for the rest of the album.
Yeah, I think I like as well about Coalescence is, I mean, I sing on it, but not that much. I'm kind of into the idea of just, it doesn't always need to have a singer on there. It's just let the song do what it needs to. Like track 2, CHIO3, which is the one which has been online. It's kind of like, doesn't need a vocal. Just, I'm more into the idea of a song. I mean, I've never really, lyrics and vocals are just something that usually just comes naturally again. But Coalescence, when I wrote that, that was always going to be the first song on the album. We all agreed that. We kind of all wanted to put it out as a single, but it's 11 minutes long. So, mind you, we kind of thought it'd be too much to digest, but we probably should have just done it, to be honest with you. Because it's weird, it's 11 minutes long, but it does kind of stick in your head. And I said we hadn't played this album live. We played one gig last year at Todd Morden near Hebden Bridge, which was like a one-off, and it sold out really quickly, and it was just one of them special gigs. And we played half a new album live then, and Coalescence, already that night, you kind of sense this is going to end up being one of our live favourites now, because people just got onto it right away. Yeah. It's kind of like roll on October when we play these shows. We can, the thing we're liking about the idea of gigging in 6 months is people will have had the album and live with it, and they'll be itching to hear it live. And I think everyone always says about us is, if you think we're good on record, go see them live. And I kind of like that. I agree with that. When we play live, it kind of just, everything always just goes up. It's kind of just something that happens. We always play our live gigs like a boxer going into the ring. I think it's kind of like you're walking on stage, but it's kind of like, right, here we go. It's like when there was never any half measures, it's kind of like all out. And I just can't wait to Coalescence live. I think that's just going to be one that connects. What's quite amusing, it's 11 minutes long. I think we're limiting our sets to like 3 or 4 songs. Because Epitaph always finishes our gigs, and always will. And that's 12. When we play that live, it's sometimes 20 minutes long. So, no, it's good to just go back to the album. And I've only listened back to it maybe 3 or 4 times. But there's nothing. I mean, I love the fact that, I mean, the last song on the album is almost like it doesn't belong on there, High and Wild, because it's so different to the rest of it. But that's what I love about what we do and the bands I love. I love a band who on the course of an album can sound like 10 different bands. Like you can't pinpoint them over one song even. That's what I love about bands. Nothing worse to me than when you put a band on and you immediately go, oh yeah, that's them. And you're in default for 45 minutes or whatever. Mm. With us, we always set out to make albums that are different. And as I said, like Sunrise, when we've done Sunrise, we did that in the summer of 2019. Mm-hmm. And in our own heads, we were hearing it, thinking, oh, what would it be like hearing that in a nightclub? Seeing people get it played in nightclubs and see how people react to it. Because if that came on in a nightclub, anyone that knows us wouldn't go, that's a Lucid Dream. It's kind of, you think it was an acid house song from the 80s or something, or it's a lot of craft work in there as well. But I think with those, it's always got to be, I mean, like you touched upon the jungle drum and bass kind of influence, which is most prominent on Leave Me in the Dark, I think. Track 3,
that's a great track, yeah.
Which again has a lot of dub influence on there towards the second half, about the idea of taking half a song and just like remixing it like King Tubby or Lee Scratch Perry would. You just completely reconstructing a song. That's what I love about that song. That song, Leave Me in the Dark, or I love, it's like 2 parts, but the first half, it's just like power. It's just like so strong. I mean, it's probably an interesting chance to clear this up. Whenever we're releasing these new songs, people, the odd person will comment, I miss the drums. It was like, that is our drummer playing that. Right. You do not get a drum machine who can play like that. That is our drummer. It's just like where we're mixing the drums.
Yeah.
We're not just making it sound like a drum kit. I mean, there's programming on there, but it's kind of about mixing them together. But I mean, our drummer's like, he's the best drummer in Britain, in my opinion. He's amazing. Like, when I was listening to Leave in the Dark and the bass player and just everyone's just like, that for me, it's quite ironic. When we finished the album, that for me was a song where that's probably the song I wasn't as into as much, and then went back to it. It was kind of one I was kind of getting more drawn into. But it's I'm just itching, like the album comes out in a month, I'm just itching. For me, I love it on release day when, I mean, I'm not a social media person. I don't use it. I don't use Facebook or anything like that. But I run the band's Twitter and Facebook sometimes, and I love it on an album release day. But Twitter just spirals because you just get loads of people giving their feedback, and it's very special. Like when you just sit there and have like, get yourself 5 minutes, have a cup of tea or whatever, and you're looking back and you're like, you're all it's a great feeling when people just coming back, giving their thoughts, and even ones when people are like saying, nah, this isn't for me. It's like, it's fair enough. It's like, when you change as much as we have, it's not going to be to everyone's taste, and it's only music.
There's something for everyone on this album, I think. You know, especially as you mentioned the last track, High and Wild. You know, it's I think it's the only song with a guitar. It's like the rest of the songs, the previous songs on the album are like the whole party, and this is like the come down track.
Yes.
And it's you know, it says it's the only one to feature guitars, but it sort of shows. Is this the direction maybe you'll go in for the next album?
Well, a bit of a spoiler, but the next album is kind of an album of 2 halves, literally, right. Because one half of it's gonna have its dipping its toe fully into like techno and things like that, and the second half is gonna be a lot more like High and Wild in the sense of quite dark, really, really dark, actually, really, right. Really dark,
right?
Quite sparse as well, and like I wrote half that part of a new album, album number 6, after just listening to Talk for ages. I mean, 3 of Talk's albums really inspired us, and I got back into the idea of like
what albums? What Talk albums?
Well, the classic 3, as I say, Colour Spring, Laughing Stock, and Spirit of Eden. Those 3 albums were a big influence on what's just become probably our next album.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of just being really sparse, but tapping back into the darkness that we're good at, which I love about High and Wild. That was the last song we recorded on the album, and it's a very heavy song in many ways. I mean, that was actually written way before album number 5 as well, but kind of finally made its way on.
Is that because it took so long to really nail it the way you wanted it?
Yeah, because I'd never actually brought it forward and said I've got this song, but there's a couple of lyrics on that song which feature on our other Compulsion songs and Actualisation, and that's kind of purposeful. I like the idea of themes running across albums, little references to other songs of your own even, and that's High and Wild has a lot of similarities to No Sunlight Dub, which finishes Actualisation. I kind of held off until it kind of felt right to put it on, but Actualisation, our 4th album, it's one of them where everything was moving so fast. Actualisation I wrote that in a couple of weeks, and it's kind of like, it felt too good to even consider putting another song on there. It was kind of like, let's go and make this album. It's weird. It's interesting. I mean, there'll be a lot of artists who probably feel this way, but it's interesting having sat on this record and lived throughout what's happened in the last year.
Yeah.
Because this album, by default, now is going to be associated with a lot of what's happened. And it's, while quite interesting, Actualisation was probably, I think we all said 2018 was, when it was released, was the best year of our lives. It was just amazing. Everything just seemed to be too good almost, you know.
Yeah, it was your first real sort of commercial success, that album, wasn't it? I think it was the album charts.
Yeah, we didn't know about that for about 4 or 5 weeks after, quite amusingly, because
really?
just don't pay attention. I mean, we didn't register it for the charts, so that album, that didn't even contribute for loads of copies that were sold direct or elsewhere. But that album, I mean, that was just, we did a lot of great gigs for Actualisation as well. We got Wooden Chips tour support in Britain. It was 5 or 6 gigs, and that was a great tour. I mean, we've not done many support tours, and it's always good to play to other people's audiences. It's a bit of a challenge as well. So we had that tour, and our headline gigs. Yeah, that was when we started. Our crowds just shot up. We started selling out most of the gigs, and it kind of, with the nature of what Actualisation was like, with a lot of the acid house influence and techno stuff, the gigs kind of just reflected that. I mean, SX1000, every time we played that every night, it was just like, we were unsure how it was going to go down live, and it ended up going down the best of a lot. I mean, we've had some brilliant times at this band, and equally, we loved probably the second album too, where we played Europe and we weren't playing to that many people really, but we were just having a great time. I mean, live, the way we were playing our gigs in 2014, 2015, when our second album came out, the Lucid Dream self-titled, those gigs were just like, I think every band, I was thinking about this last night, every band, they have that moment where they're just kind of playing with gigs which are kind of not natural, but in a good way. I mean, I can see you've got a Verve shirt on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking about. When the Verve 94, 95, they just started like doing these shows, and Northern Soul, like doing these gigs, which were just, and making music. It was just right on the edge of not being good for you, but it works. And remember, for us, that was like our second album. I think we were all just, there's a lot of chaos going on, and that period was just like brilliant darkness and intense time, but brilliant, because for us, we'll never replicate those gigs, but I wouldn't want to either, because I love what we're doing now, and I just love the difference and how you can be intense in other ways. For us, we've always thought outside the box, and I think that's what I love about what we do, because no one really knows what we're going to do next. And I've probably given a lot of it away with the 6th album. You might just share it now.
Yeah, send it to me and I'll put it out on the website.
What's that, sorry?
Send it to me and I'll put it out on the website tonight if you want. But I was glad to see that Actualisation did really well, because in 2017 you got your all your gear stolen in Paris, which was big fucking shit, you know. So what was the story behind that? How did that feel? What happened?
Well, it was one of the most weird moments of my life, because we played London, and then we went to Paris. We played a show in Paris that night, and both shows were just off the scale. I mean, Paris was just like mosh pits and everything. It was just crazy. It was just like, I remember us going after, saying, we just, obviously we're not like in a household name or anything. I remember us just going over, like, we're normally at work tomorrow, and we've just played a show like that in Paris, and people were like shouting your songs and stuff. And we were all just so happy. And we had our friends with us, Rodian and our tour DJ. So we had loads of our friends from Carlisle. It was brilliant. And then we went to our hotel in Montmartre in Paris, because I hate to spoil everything's illusions of bands, but the reality is, when you play in a tour, you're in your hotel and getting your sleep before going on your next journey at 8 in the morning, because we're meant to play Brussels the day after. And we went to Ibis, which promoter had booked us, and we all went in, and I'm always first up. I'm an early riser. I get up at 6 o'clock every morning, and I said, right, I'll take the bags down to the tour van. And I remember opening the door and just throwing the bags in, and this hollow noise. It's almost like a comedy one. Hold on a second. I opened up, and sure enough, empty. And, you know, it took about a minute to register. And I rang Luke, the drummer. He's kind of like the boss when we were on tour. I rang him, and he went, "You're only ringing me for one reason, aren't you?" Yes. Yeah, we've been robbed of absolutely everything. Horrible. It's kind of, unfortunately, we were targeted because it took our full everything, and we had a lot of stuff with us. Took our two DJs' records, everything. It was horrible, but it was, I mean, I remember once the dust had settled and we'd realised, a couple of them went to talk to the police, and the rest of us naturally went to a pub. It was like, I remember us getting around in, and when we had a good time. It's been a good 10 years, this. I'm very proud. We thought we were just calling it a day there and then. And while we were in Paris, a couple, my brother, my other half at the time, had set up a crowdfunder, and before we'd even got out of Paris, we were kind of like back on our feet. It was just amazing, like so overwhelming. It was just beautiful. So we ended up getting another go at it. Just very lucky and thankful. Some really kind people helped us out there, because that's when once we'd done crowdfunder, we realised we could continue. The first thing I did was go and write Actualisation, which was written on new synthesizers, which I'd managed to get further down the line. It was kind of like Lucid Dream Mark II almost. Let's go again, in a different sense of this is a new setup, a new sound. Let's go for it. Do something different. But Paris kind of was awful, but it kind of kickstarted us into a total different thing. I mean, we were hardly treading water, but I'm not sure if we would have went the way we did if it wasn't for Paris. But I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, though, what happened there, because it's not only that, it was very scary as well, because, I mean, we're from Carlisle, which is, it's quite an edgy place. We're not, we're used to, but Paris, but I mean, what happened in Paris, that was a targeted gang, and they did it good and proper. They obviously were armed the way they done it, and there must have been a lot of them to move all that equipment. Just glad that none of us were in the van.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Given the age of social media, a lot of people chipped in with their thoughts. A lot of people were like, "Why weren't you in the van? Why didn't you? Why was the van? Why did you have your equipment in the van?" Well, there's a back when you're on tour. Tour van there's a bit for all your equipment, separate, double locked. And why do you have it in the van? Because what touring band goes and unloads the full gear in the hotel every night? It just doesn't happen. Logistically not possible. I'm just glad that we weren't in the van, because it doesn't even bear thinking about. But we've not been back to Paris, and we've only been back to Europe a couple of times since for one-offs. But this is quite interesting. I don't think we'll be touring Europe again anyway because of the current situation, and it's going to be visas and what have you now. But we wouldn't go back to. I don't think we'd ever go back to doing that again. Now we just do the one-offs in Europe. But at the same time, we've had some. For every bad memory like that, we've also got a dozen ones which are just like you would never have imagined were ever possible and brilliant. And a lot of, we also try and humour ourselves with these bad situations and laugh about the bad things where we can, because you can't dwell on them too much, can you?
But yeah, but it's tough enough times for bands, you know, without things like that, like that they're happening, you know. Especially a lot of bands these days have day jobs, you know.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
How do you find that trying to fit your day job around the band when you're going on tour? You know, how hard is it?
My work have always been good. All our works have always been really good for it, because when we started our jobs, we were in our early 20s and doing this anyway. But it's all right, you know. Like we're very like organised in what we do when we go on tour. We go and we know what we're doing, and we know like we're not coming back off tour and hiding in our bedroom feeling sorry for ourselves for a couple of weeks. It's kind of like we've got families as well, so that's reality. We've always been pretty sensible in the sense of doing the gigs and working around our families and day jobs. It's all right. I personally wouldn't have it any other way. I kind of like having my normal life, so to speak. We all do. I mean, if there was a stage where if we wanted to, if we could go play a couple hundred gigs a year and probably try and do it full time, but that'd be my worst nightmare. We don't do big tours, not anymore. It's not for everyone. So I think we're all quite happy having our normal lives, and then going having the fun side of playing the gigs on in the meantime. When we can.
Just a few. I like just a few more questions, Mark. I like to ask, I guess, these questions. Is there an album or a song that's your guilty pleasure?
Well, when I'm DJing, I always play Madonna, but I don't know if that's a guilty pleasure. Into the Groove, is that a guilty pleasure?
No, that's a good tune.
I love it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is enough. I always think that when I'm playing Madonna, I remember DJing Liverpool Psych Fest one year, and I played Madonna, and I was getting abuse off somebody who was giving me loads of grief. And I played the Shaman. You mentioned the Shaman before.
Yeah.
I played, and he's shouting, "This isn't psychedelia." I says, "Yes, it is." Yeah. But I'd say Madonna, if we can call that a guilty pleasure, but she's pretty cool, really, isn't she?
Yeah, that's a good tune, definitely. Is there an artist out of all the music in your collection? Is there an artist or band that you have the most albums of?
Yeah, yes. There's 3 or 4 bands I own everything by, which Spiritualized will be one of them.
And they're reissuing all the albums.
Yeah, I've got the Laser Guided Melodies one just pre-ordered. I've got the original, but it's a bit battered. But I'm looking forward to those reissues. They're well overdue. Space and Free, I've got just about everything they've released, and I've got absolutely everything that Verve released. So it might be because Spiritualized released more albums. Tough one. Who else? I'm looking at my records now, but I can't actually see them. I'm not sure. It's a good question. I'll probably have to say one of us 3.
Right. All good.
Tie.
All good choices. What have you been listening to recently that you could recommend for anyone watching?
Well, that's a good thing about the current situation of working from home. I listen to music non-stop, so I'm lucky in that sense. And for me, in the last week I've been listening to PJ Harvey, Is This Desire, which got reissued recently. Saint Etienne, So Tough. What else have I been listening to? Rossi and Murphy's new album, which is outstanding. Talk. What else have been listening? I'm trying to think of all the records I've been buying recently.
I've been listening to loads of Talk recently, actually.
I love the artwork as well. It's amazing.
It's funny you mentioned it. I go through phases of listening to Talk all the time.
I've had them on all winter. I think Talk for me are probably a band. When I listen to them now, I just think about being freezing cold because it's been freezing in this flat. And Talk for me have been probably the most listened to, and Outcast as well. They've been listening to a lot of Outcast recently. There's quite a few there. Miles Davis, On the Corner. I've had that on a lot recently. I listen to a lot of different stuff every day, just kind of randomly pick stuff out. But most recent album as in released, Jane Weaver's new album this week, which is brilliant.
No, I haven't heard that now. I must check that out. That's why I ask anybody I'm talking to, what they're listening to, so I can check it out myself.
Yeah, Jane Weaver was the last one I bought the other day, and I've listened to that 3 times, and it's great.
And you mentioned PJ Harvey. I think my favorite PJ Harvey album would have to be Let England Shake. It's a tremendous album.
She's amazing. Just like she's another one another artist who can just every album just be totally do something unexpected, but she's brilliant at it. And I mean that album's. But I mean, again, that's totally different from anything she'd done previously. I'm a bit obsessed with PJ Harvey at the minute. It's just she's incredible.
That's what I like about my artisan bands. I like artisan bands that move on, like you're doing. Every record, you don't know what's coming next, which is amazing, And it's fantastic from a fan's point of view.
Yeah, that's what I love. Well, all these artists, like PJ Harvey. I mean, I've said Miles Davis. He's another one who just did stuff that was just totally different. And Talk. I mean, they were a massive band, weren't they? And then they went and made 2 albums, which the record label hated. But Mark Emmerson he was he loved them, and they're just so experimental and amazing.
But talking about you've changed with every record, but you've even changed within this album, because as I said, all the other tracks, bar the very last track, are all sort of pretty upbeat, but then you just weren't expecting the last track, and you're like, whoa, so it's all good.
It literally is the only one with a guitar on it, really, like proper guitar. Fight to Survive's got a guitar on it, but we actually sampled Wayne playing guitar, so it's not, we sampled him and put it in, as opposed to just playing guitar. Again, that's kind of us thinking outside the box. Sometimes it might work, sometimes it doesn't, but I mean, I love that song. Fight to Survive is going to be one where it will shock a lot of people and it won't be everyone's cup of tea, but I mean, that song, that's like massively influenced by 80s hip hop. Like the drum beat in particular, like MC Shan, NWA in places on the drum beat, Public Enemy, and the keys are the keyboard on that song are influenced a lot by Dr. Dre, and it's like it's probably be a shock to a lot of people when they hear that, but that's all good.
Yeah, it is, and it is a tremendous album. I'm not just saying that. I really have been enjoying it. So for anyone watching, do you want to say how they can get it in your website, or how they can order it?
This album, it's the first one that you can't actually get off us, and that's just because we decided before lockdown anyway, but we kind of this is the album where we're just sitting back and letting it come out and enjoying it. So we're not actually doing the orders or anything, which I'm kind of pleased about, because it means that record stores can get it. The vinyl is nearly sold out, I think. You can get that at Piccadilly Records, Resident Records in Brighton. People in Carlisle can get it from Vinyl Cafe. I think Rough Trade have got it. That's on the 2nd of April. That's released. I mean, the vinyl is, I'm not sure how many are left. I don't think there's any really at all now, because they always go quite quickly. And we're not doing a second press on it either. So that's on the 2nd of April. And it's a chance just to get behind the stores and support it. And it's just announced a couple of hours ago, the week of release, we're doing a Tim Burgess listening party for the album as well. One of his Twitter listening parties that he's been doing over the last year. So I'm looking forward to doing that, because we did one for Compulsion songs, and it's quite emotional, to be honest. Like just seeing all the things people are writing and revisiting. This is what I love about making albums. See, right now it's very much an album which you think about the pandemic and what have you, but in 5 years' time I'll listen back to it and I'll think about that again, but with maybe hopefully with a sense of relief as well, and thinking we came out, here we are, and that's what I loved about Compulsion songs when we revisited that. It's kind of like brought back a lot of memories, good ones, bad ones, and that's what I love about music in general. That's the beauty of it. It takes you somewhere. Sometimes it's not the best of places, but that's what I love about it. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what people have to say, good and bad. I mean, we're not very precious. We're all the same. We're not very precious about it. We are precious about making our albums, but we're very much, we have a lot of tongue-in-cheek humour about it as well. I mean, we've got those Psych Traitor shirts coming out in a couple of weeks, we had that on the badge when SX1000 was released as a single, because lots of people were really put out by it, because it's like a house song, and like releasing a Psych Traitor shirt it's kind of just like a bit of tongue-in-cheek humour. When this album comes out, there'll be people that don't get it, but those who do, that's all that matters. I mean, our last album, Actualisation, took 4 albums, but that was the one that Andrew Weverell got into, and for us, doesn't get any higher than that.
Yeah.
Like that's the beauty of music. I mean, remember being in work that day that he played us on like summer mix, and I just said to someone at work, Andrew Weatherall's just included us on the mix, and like, what, Andrew Weatherall? Because like everyone knows him who knows the music, and I mean that when you kind of think like I'd be good the chance to say this when people are in bands or want to start a band. I always say this, but we always say this in interviews, just make the music and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And enjoy it, because we've been very lucky. We might not go to Europe ever again now, but we've been around Europe 9 or 10 times. We've created memories that we never thought we ever could. We've released records and have connected with people. I mean, we've met quite a lot of our favourite musicians through all this and done things we never expected, played with them. And any band or anyone that just wants to start, just do the music.
Yeah.
Don't think about anything else. Doesn't matter. Not important. Doesn't matter. Just do what you think is right.
Yeah.
And enjoy yourselves, because we've been together for 14 years now, and we're still very close. And well, we've been together in various bands for 3 of us for 20 years. 3/4 of us have played together for 20 years now, and that's never going to change. Just enjoy it. I mean, that's what I love about what we've done. We've always remained good friends. We've never really had an argument or anything.
That's unusual.
And no, that's the thing. I mean, it's because we know each other's characters well.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're on tour for 2 weeks, there's always going to be a time where someone doesn't turns the radio up too loud and you're shouting at each other over something like that, or parking your van. That has happened, actually. We've had an argument over parking the van. But I think bands just shouldn't take things too literally or take themselves too seriously. Don't listen to what anyone tells you to do. Just do what you want. It's only music, I say that, but yeah, buy our new album.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully, I know you have some shows lined up for October, but hopefully you'll get across the water to Ireland and Belfast at some stage.
Yeah, because we did some shows in Republic about 7 or 8 years ago, I think. I think we played Dublin, Cork, Galway, and somewhere else. I'm not quite sure where it was, but I'd love to come to Belfast. There's been there's a lot of musical history in Belfast, and it's like it's one of the only places we've not been. So we'd love to. Hopefully people in Northern Ireland get into the record and it connects. Are you in Belfast?
Yeah.
Hopefully we can, because we've never been to Belfast, and I'd love to go.
Yeah, there's some great venues you could play. That would be perfect for you guys. Like, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just saying, I was just reading up on a lot of Belfast music. I mean, is it David Holmes? Is he from Belfast? Yeah, he is. Yeah, I was just reading that the other day in a book about Andrew Weatherall.
Yeah.
And talking about some of the clubs and the club nights they had on in Belfast. Sounds great.
Yeah, and he used to have club nights in the art college and stuff like that there, and then he was doing some a couple of years ago as well. You know.
Hopefully, we've been to just about everywhere else. Really, don't know why it's never happened, to be honest.
No, well, there you go. You have to then.
I've signed up now.
Listen, mate, it was great talking to you, and I wish you all the best with the album. It is absolutely great, tremendous. Love it.
Thank you. I mean, we were just saying this amongst ourselves the other day. It's just like, it's just good when someone really gets it and invests their time, efforts into it, because we really do appreciate that. It's not taken for granted. Anyone who puts their effort into listen to our record or praising us, it's amazing. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Not a problem. And I have a stream of it, so as soon as it come off now, while I'm sorting everything out, I'm going to stick it on.